I'm Frank Benish. I've been in this town for 3 generations, not me, but my family has been. My grandfather settled here from Praha, Bohemia. I've seen a lot of changes in town, a lot of personality changes. I used to see the highway go through the middle of the town, that type of thing. And one of the things that we have are our buildings. And it's really neat that we're having these seminars to preserve that part of our heritage. The glazing is relatively simple. I learned how to do it at the store at Ace Hardware. When I started working there after I retired, I worked there just a couple days a week. They needed someone to do the windows, and I volunteered. So the things that I'm going to tell you about, by the way, I need to plug in my laptop. The things I'm going to tell you about are things that I've learned by doing, okay? And I like to probably break it into 3 different things: the experience, the product that you need, and the glass. I want to make sure that you understand the glass. Again, the experience was gained by trial and error. The people at the store told me a few little hints, that type of thing. The products that you need is a good glaze, which is like putty. Little hint about glaze: when you buy it, have them put it in a paint shaker, because it becomes the consistency of Play-Doh, where if you don't shake it, it's real sticky and you have a double of a time handling it. So it makes it easier to handle. Found that out. You need a good chisel. That's for taking out the old glazing. The angle of the chisel is very important. If you get one that's at a severe angle, it doesn't work very well. If you get one that's a little bit shallower, it gets underneath that putty and works a lot better. You've got a light hammer. That's for chipping away. When you get some hard stuff, you sit there and do like so. Or if you get frustrated, it's for breaking the glass. And there's 2 different ways you can, and also once you get the putty out from around the glass, you have glazing points. A lot of times I usually just remove the old glazing points and put in new ones. That way I know they're there, and I know they're in the position that I like to have them. I think that you get out at the store, you get 50 of them for like 99 cents. And there's 2 different kinds of putties. You can tell this one's been used a lot. I borrowed this from the store today. It's got an angle in it and a groove, and you lay that along the side of the window, and it just makes a nice finish on your glaze. And a lot of people prefer a putty knife. I just happen to prefer that kind of knife because it does a better job. They're down. They're in aisle. Yeah, I think they're in aisle 15, down towards the bottom on the right-hand side, and they're $5.99. Glass. I've had a lot of different types of glass come in windows. I've seen some glass in these old windows that has been handmade. It's got a dark bluish tint to it. There's bubbles and imperfections through it, that type of thing. It seems to be really tough. If you do happen to, so I may take pains not to damage that type of glass when I'm doing these windows. No, yeah, that pains, yeah. they didn't get it. Anyway, if you happen to crack your window glass when you're trying to get the putty out and stuff, keep going and save the glass if you can, because it's nice to have the pieces. You can put it together, then take your measurements. That way you know your replacement glass, will fit the opening. It saves you from going through the measurements and say, well, let's see, should I make that a 1/16 of an inch shorter, or, well, maybe, and then cut it and not have it fit right. It's relatively simple. I think that in my notes when I was back there at the table, I just happened to, they were talking about replacement windows and the costs, and just because of the glazing is a little flaky and stuff doesn't mean you have to replace the windows. I think in materials like $10, and you know, you could probably do 2 to 3 windows for that, or you can bring them down to the store and we could probably do them for a little more than that. But are there any questions? I know it's short and sweet, but.
Do you prime the wood before you put the putty on?
No. Maybe we should, but no.
My battery already told me you should prime the wood. If that's too much work, you just prime it.
No. Our window people back here say, no, you shouldn't.
You don't prime it?
No, you do not back prime because your putty will not stick into the wood. You must and should use, paint everything with boiled linseed oil, which I'm sure hates that lot of before you glaze. It's the way it is.
Yeah.
No, never back.
No, that's true, because logically that glazing has to stick to the wood so it has a seal.
Get into it if you seal it with primer.
Should be a thing sort of glazing on both sides of the glass.
If you wanted to,
We just do it on one side. Yeah.
if you wanted to save your 150-year-old glass, didn't want it to break it, how would you get it out without that very carefully?
Yes, very carefully.
Do you have, I mean, I have methods, but do you?
No, I just take my time. It takes patience. You know, you can't force that old glazing out of there if it's sticking pretty tough.
I might recommend that you do not, you have very old CD, wavy, imperfect glass, which is not something to be started lightly. When you walk down the street, when you go on your walking tour this afternoon, I want you to look at the buildings from an angle, from a shallow angle, because you'll look at the glass and you'll be able to see in the reflection the old and the new. You'll be able to see where there's wavy glass and where there's flat glass. And that look of that waviness is part of the exterior finish of the building. And one of the ways to save that very valuable antique glass is to use low heat. Do not use a propane torch. Use a heat gun on a low setting. One of the things that we've found is that you can take tinfoil, stupid dumb tinfoil, and put it on the glass, and it acts as a heat sink so that it doesn't crack the glass. And you'll be able to soften the putty a little bit. It makes it much easier to get out.
Yeah.
Commercially, we have a dip tank, and I have some stripper that would eat the hide up a rhino. It takes out putty just fine. But
well, they had a couple of devices down at the store. There was a flat plate with a heating element in it. You used to run that. I tried to use that 3 times, and
try the aluminum foil technique or the glaze warmer, because it does work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, on the kind of, yeah, just next to the glazing, so that the heat isn't going into the glass. It's the difference in temperature that will crack it. And of course, one of the ones I watched a guy one time taking his ash from outdoors where it was 30 degrees, and then hitting them with a 450-degree heat gun. And he couldn't believe why all that glass was just cracking.
Cracking, breaking. You use
hair dryers usually don't get hot.
You use one of those one of those heat guns that you use for stripping paint. Is that right?
And if you get the kind with the little nozzle on it, where it directs it, makes it into a finer. That works pretty good.
Good. Yes.
Are there any tips on what type of temperatures you find when doing this outdoors? And times of the year when you shouldn't be glazing the windows.
It's a good question.
How do you take them out, put them inside, and let them flat?
Yeah, it really is. Even though I have gone to a house and replaced a did some glazing because people couldn't get the window out. One of the old houses, you know, where you have to darn near dismantle the woodwork to get the thing out. It doesn't say, real quickly, it doesn't say anything in here. But I think a reasonable temperature, you know, that yeah, above 45 degrees and that kind of thing.
Not a good thing to do in the winter.
No, not unless you're trying to keep the heat out of your house, the cold out of your house.
It's one of those things that takes practice. I mean, you watch somebody who's done it, and it's amazing how simple it is. My old 1850s brick house in the country had 21 windows, and by the time I got to the 18th one, it's pretty good. I'd hate to see it. So I saved a lot of the old glass, and it's amazing. I put some of the old glass in and decided new glass, and the color is different. You can see the bubbles, you can see waviness, and it was really kind of neat. Another thing I found out with glass is that I had some of the windows that had been probably replaced in the late 1800s, but they still had been in that 50 or 60, 70 years. And they were big frames. The glass can do what's called creep. It's actually, even though it's a hard substance,
Liquid.
it still is, you know, the force of gravity will cause it to migrate downward. And so I took out some of these big pieces of glass, and they were probably no more than 3/16 of an inch, 3/32 on the top. But they were fully 16 or inch thicker in the bottom. The glass basically, I know other wood does that. If you apply luxury, concrete does it, so I guess why not glass? It just probably won't impact you at all, but it's just one of those little things that's funny.
In high-end restoration jobs, the architect will actually specify that you must save all glass, and if you have to reorient, you have to orient you have to orient every piece of glass to be creased so the crease is down. They want it. They specify that close.
I found glass is really a strange thing. I've had windows come in where someone has baseball accident, you know, and you got a hole here. Well, the easiest way when the glass is broken to repair it is to finish breaking it, take the pieces out and be careful that you don't cut yourself, and then take the glazing out and clean up the frame and stuff. I've had to literally take that little hammer and just hit that as hard as I could hit it to make it break. But yet that baseball, I guess the concentrate, well, it doesn't make any difference. It broke the glass.
Did anybody ever want to save that piece of glass instead of a remembrance?
I don't know, but I mean, glass is strange. You know, some of it is really, you can just touch it a certain way and it'll shatter, or you can beat the heck out of it and it won't break. It's really strange.
Baseball break, it takes the stress out of it, so now you're hitting it with a hammer, and you just got something.
That could be. Yeah, it could be.
Like you just said, it's a liquid, so.
Something else also, when you have to glaze the windows, wait till the time you turn over
Yes.
before you paint.
Yes.
That was mine, and I was going to ask you to read the time that
Very good.
33 recommends on the can.
You probably have one, because you got to do it as soon as possible, you got one that sets up quicker probably.
We use linseed oil based putties for all our products.
The unfortunate problem with Biddle glazing compound, permaglaze, which is right now the only commercial glazing that's available that is linseed oil based, is that it's separated. So the Ace and all hardware stores, they don't want to carry it because it doesn't have a shelf life. It lasts a long time on the shelf. But once you open it, that's it.
That's
and
it.
when you open it, and it's been on the shelf for 6 months, you're going to have that much linseed oil on the top, and the bottom's going to be full of relatively hard stuff. So you pour the linseed oil off, and you mix it all up, and it's good. But then, and it skins in 24 hours, paintable in 48. I know what that is. So find it on there.
No, I didn't.
28 days.
Is it really? Because they go out.
And it's extremely important. I'm not saying that DAP isn't a good product. I'm just saying that that's one of the drawbacks. They had sulfur that's one of them. And the other big one on the market is UGL. That makes the basement waterproofing thing. They have one in there too, and it's kind of similar to the DAP.
And what kind of,
Well, if you paint it before, the compound is still wet underneath, and you paint it, and your paint will sprinkle.
You can probably go out and look at miles out and see
Yeah. This tech. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't have good paint, folks, I'm telling you, you have to paint your glazing compound. If you don't, it will go away in a year. It really, really has to be kept coated. And the glazing compound is only as good as the paint over it. And one of the tricks of the trade is that when you are painting, you must leave a 32nd of an inch of paint on the glass. Don't just go take a scraper and go scraping into the putty to get it all lined up real pretty and nice, because that creates an entree for water and moisture. So an old-fashioned painter will know how to cut in, take his brush, and cut in that line around the paint. I am not one of those people. And so we developed a technique that uses young men who don't know anything about painting. They slop it on and they paint it and it gets all over the glass. And then we take a spackling knife or a drywall knife, and we hold it against the glaze and we scrape up to the knife and use it as a shield, so that they leave that blade width of paint on the glass. And it looks really nice when it's done.
This technique and these tools that we're talking about only apply to single pane glass. It doesn't apply to the thermo. Thermo is a totally different situation. There's only, well, a regular glass place are the people who repair those types of windows, and it's quite expensive because they get to pump gas in between them and that type of thing. We don't do that. This is just single pane windows that we're kind of familiar with.
Do they glaze this double pane glass?
I'm trying to think what we've got in our replacement windows. They do. It's not a putty glaze, is it? It is.
Normally on a square window we do a wood stop. We paint it with the insulated glass. But on different shapes of windows, like say a round top or a circle segment, they're backbed with a toxin compound.
Okay.
And then allow to dry overnight, then backfill around the insulated glass unit, then surface glaze with putty.
Now, I've been hearing on regular pane glass now, putty behind the window as well as in front.
Behind the glass.
So you just put down a thin bead of glazing on both sides.
Yeah.
On the ledge that the glass fits on.
On the glazing roll. All back that like that.
All the way down.
Gee, willigers. Educational for me, too. Even though I don't do them anymore.
You know, and there's another little technique, too, used by manufacturers to get away from having... Huh?
Better seal.
The better seal.
Logically, that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
Before you put the glass in, and this is a typical mutton barn, I'll pass this around too. You want to lay a bead of that putty on here before you put the glass in. And what that does is, when you close the sash up, and it prevents the glass from rattling against it.
Is one, and it's also better sealed.
Makes sense.
A top-end manufacturer won't use putty to back that. They'll use a compound that comes in a caulk tube that is not caulking. Because the problem with caulking is if you put it in there and you have, that baseball goes through your painted glass, you thought it was hard getting it out with the hammer. Just wait until it's caulked in.
Yeah.
Well,
you know? So they have a less sticky material that they use to back that.
Had some people bring windows in where they use silicone.
Yeah, awful stuff.
Boy, that's fun. That's fun to work with.
Silicone and wood don't mix.
If there isn't any other questions, I think, yes, ma'am.
Do you have any helpful hints? You put the glass window in and you use the glazing points that you don't crack the glass as you're putting in the glazing points?
Well, this nice has a nice angle to it. I think that's your clue if you main parallel with the surface of the glass. And these glazing points have a little ridge on the top of them, so you just get up against that and just push them in real gently. That's happened. I've done that too. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
If you break your old glass, is
Yes.
it best to go and find some more old glass, or to put new glass in there, or is there a source for old glass, or is it going to be different, or what do you do?
It's a good question, Ed. You know about that?
I think Mark has a good answer for that.
Yeah, there is restoration glass available, but it's extremely expensive. Example, you know, the regular plate glass, which you go down to the local glass store, even a hardware store, and get, is just, you know, an eighth of an inch double strength glass, flat plate. You know, they say maybe 80 cents a square foot, somewhere around there. The restoration glass will be somewhere around $15 to $17 a square foot.
So you can replace it if you want.
But you have two local sources for real, genuine, antique glass. The first is the Salvage Barn in Iowa City. The second is, I don't know who they are, but you know who they are. They're somewhere around here. There are at least 1 or 2 or 3 guys that are running around putting in vinyl windows. Okay, I would cruise the alley behind their house, and I would look for all the window sash that they're. I'm not kidding you. I founded the Architectural Salvage Cooperative in Davenport, and I contacted every single one of those guys. And every morning I would come in, and there would be 50 to 100 window sash lined up along the fence of the cooperative. And we would take them in and just stand them up out in the yard so they'd sit out in the rain. And they would deteriorate real fast that way, and we would pull them apart for the glass. And we sold an awful lot of genuine antique glass. We had a regular grading system and color grading system and everything going for doing it. So
I can imagine. I can imagine the antique glass is harder to cut than the regular.
The whole secret, in any glass cutting, I don't think old glass is any harder or anything than new glass. The secret is you have to have it clean. If you clean it off and all of the putty is off and your glazed glass cutter doesn't skip, that's what makes everybody think old glass is so hard to cut, is that as you're going, you can hear it. You know what I'm talking about. Every time you skip, it won't score the glass and then it won't break right. So if you clean it very well, it's just as easy to cut as anything else.
Is the place in Davenport still operating?
No, I'm afraid it's not.
Where you clean it, just
Windex.
There's something else about cutting glass too. It cuts a lot better if you use lubricant for your cutter.
Oil. Just keep a little baby food jar of 30 weight oil and keep your cutter in it. Every time you put your cutter down, put it in the oil when you pick it up and cut it. You know, cut it and put it back in.
Got a question I've always wondered about. Size of windows. When should you consider double strength versus single strength?
About 8 square feet.
How many?
About 8 square feet.
About 8, 4, okay. 8 square feet, you should go to double strength.
Go to DS.
A lot of that factor, if that window 8 square foot is on the 2nd or 3rd story, then you might want to go down to about 5 square foot. All depends on wind load.
Where it is, wind load.
And you know, there's a lot of factors that affect that.
Because some of these great big windows come in and they've got single strength in them, and I've always kind of wondered about that.
Well, and I brought a sash with me today that you can see the panes are not very big. There, that's got quarter plate in it.
Yeah. Very good. Is there any other questions I may answer?
We'll be around for more.
Yeah, we're gonna get 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
1 o'clock, I'm gonna steal a window from my mother's house. So we'll be productive.
Yeah, if we have a sudden disappearance of a lot of old glass from windows around, we'll know that there's a market for this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, basically, the easiest way I've found to get this old glazing out is with a nice little chisel and a little hammer.
Did you take that out earlier so that and just put it back? So
Yeah, I did. No, I picked out one of the oldest windows I could find in the house. But you just go through it like so. Now this particular window, if you'll notice in this sash, it has a groove on the upside here. By rights, you should take the time to get all that putty out of there also.
in the interest of time, I'm not going to do that because it does take a little time to do that. But you just go around the window and you pop that old putty out.
It always comes out that easy.
Yeah.
That's because they have a rig.
Well, I figured, in the interest of time, we needed to make it as easy as could. Just like that. You make sure that it's fairly clean. This particular case, it looks like the glazing points are in there really good, so we don't have to worry about those.
At home, I would recommend something probably other than a card table.
Yeah, it's a little unstable. Oh, we got a garbage can or something to put this in, put this stuff
I bet this is it.
We got a box.
Oh.
Our city council,
Well, I'll just make do here. Yeah, I could do that.
This stuff's garbage.
Okay. This is the fun part. Boy, Ed, you're good. I don't know why you're involved with this now. You get the garbage cans.
you're making them, that's pretty good.
Well, this is the way I do it, and this is the way I found it easiest for me. You might find a different way of doing it, but this is the way I do it. Make a nice little ball, and I just start on one end. Cut it in like that. You do get stuff on the window, but Windex takes that off. You just go around the window.
Don't they make a machine to do that?
Yeah, right here.
You also get the Windex.
Cost me $5 for him to say that.
That's pretty good.
I wasn't really started, Frank. Is it important to take it all out? What if you have just one little corner that's cracked?
Well, I try to take it all out because you've got old glazing in there, and if part of it's going to fall out, well, the other's going to fall out eventually too. So while you're doing it, and you got your window out, you might as well just do the whole thing and be done with it, instead of waiting for the old stuff to fall out that you didn't replace.
But I'm not going to take the window out.
You're not? Well, you could still do it in the windows. In the theater, you're never supposed to turn your audience or back to the audience, and I just did it to the camera. Most intelligent side. Like that. Then you just come through here with this tool that I like. Don't necessarily have to do that. It's a lot easier.
Putting a fair amount of pressure on there.
No, it's not that bad. I think you can tell by the way the putty, the glazing reacts to how much pressure you need to put on it. And you just start at that corner.
By the time you get all the windows in your house, then you'll have it down.
Yes.
So that tool is designed so you don't have to worry about the angle of your...
That's right.
Okay. That's writing on the top edge of the window.
Yeah. It's right on the top edge of the window. And if you watch it, you don't want to get above the wood frame on the opposite side of the glass, just for aesthetic purposes. I don't, anyway.
If you've gone back and forth, you want to visualize this direction?
No, it just depends on whether I'm satisfied with the glaze or not. You know, aesthetically. If it looks nice, I don't go back. There's no reason to do that. It's actually supposed to be like that. It's built for this. And that's all there is to it.
You probably got a window zipper at home, you don't know what that was either.
And that's all there is to it.
How long do you wait before you clean the window?
Oh, I'd wait till you get a skin on the glazing.
All the whole length of time?
No. I've done it just an hour or so after I've done them. Or when the people, you know.
Don't get your fingers in.
Just don't get your fingers in there. I've had some that I really did at the store that I really was proud of the job, and go pick them up like this. Oh, go back and get the tool. So that's basically all there is to it. It's very simple. It just takes a little time.
I've got another 16 windows.
Yeah, my mother does too.
One thing you might want to do, and I know in your time, is just take a solder brush and just brush that wood all the way around with linseed oil first. It really helps things.
What kind of brush?
Like a little solder brush.
Little
It's about
solder.
that wide. It's got a metal handle on it.
You're cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, with horsehair bristles.
Well, you can use steel wire brush, you can use no finger, it's going to really come down and get it out.
Well, no, he said he put linseed oil.
in.
Oh, yeah.
Linseed oil on it. Linseed oil on it before you glaze it.
Between putting the linseed oil on.
Well, it's best if you can to wait that long, because it gives time for the... Does everybody know what linseed oil does to wood? It rejuvenates it. It remoisturizes it. Wood gets dried out over the years, and when you put the linseed oil back in it, it remoisturizes and gets the wood fibers back to being a little more living than they used to be. And if you wait 24 hours overnight, you know, if you're doing a bunch of these, let's say you got 6 or 7 of them out, you'll be spending all day taking the glazing out anyway. You know, slop some linseed oil in there, and the next morning come out and reglaze them. You know, you'll get a much longer lasting job.
Oil.
Yeah.
Have to admit, this is one of the easier ones I've taken.
Luck out again, Frank.
Yeah, well, it was kind of planned too.
The old-time painters would mix linseed oil in with their paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, all paint was, a lot of it was linseed oil based. And I do want to bring on the subject of paint again a little bit, because this is a great controversy. You know, what kind of paint do I use? Because painting windows is a giant pain.
Oh.
Where, I won't say. But if you're going to go to the trouble to do this, please go buy the best quality paint that you can get to put on there. All paints are not created equal. You know, you pay for what you get in this world, huh? I'm talking oil base. You bet I'm talking oil base. We have discovered a type of paint that we really like, and Martha Stewart actually recommends it. It's called...
She never does the paint.
Well, yeah, you know, that's because she won't, yeah. It's called Schroeder paint. Is the name of the company. Schreuder. It comes from Holland. It is a long oil-based paint. In the old days, of course, we had long oil lead-based paint. Everybody loved it. It lasted forever until we discovered that it has problems with our health. What Schroeder is a long oil paint that instead of lead as a binder uses titanium. And it is a very long-lasting, awesomely good product. It is also expensive. No, you got to go on. You get on your search engine on your little computer and you look for the website. Just put in "Fine Paints of Europe" in your search engine, and you will get the Schroeder. They also sell Whistler and Omega brushes, which are. Once I started painting with Whistler and Omega brushes, I never wanted to go back.
They just paint themselves.
They're incredible. They still sell oval with ash handles and all the whole. I mean, and they have a pointed sash brush, a round pointed sash brush that's just incredible. And it makes even someone as bad as I am at painting able to cut in, you know, and just do a really, really wonderful job. And one brush will last you a lifetime.
I've got a question. Obviously, that window hasn't been painted. It's been varnished.
Right.
Could you varnish the glazing?
Yeah.
That'll work just as well as paint.
It'll work. I'm not saying as well, but it'll work.
It'll work. Okay.
It's not protected.
Pardon me?
It won't protect it very well, but it'll not like paint.
Not like paint.
But this one's got an interior glazed window, doesn't it? Or
No, that's
that's
outside.
outside. It's just
That's
paint.
outside.
It's just varnished on the outside.
Yeah, they were all varnished on the outside.
That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
It cost her a factor, and I think Schroeder.
Schrader?
Without it, her pocketbook. What other paints would you, commercial paints would you recommend?
Benjamin Moore. Ace. Benjamin Moore. Pratt and Lambert. Sherwin-Williams. You gotta be careful when you go to Sherwin-Williams store.
They make a paint and primer all in one right now. It's very good price.
In the same way, if you're going to one of the discount stores, a lot of these paint companies make several different levels of paints, and they don't necessarily have the best ones at the discount store. That's why it always seems so much cheaper. So you want to make sure that you're getting the best one, not just
Because it's cheaper.
at that particular store.
Yeah.
Well, how does the all-in-one paint primer work? I mean, you put two coats of each on, or?
No, you have your primary color mixed in, and you just tell what you want, and there's a lot of paint and primer in one step. It's a very thick paint. You can't spray it. It has to be brushed. It's an oil base, and it has about a 24 to 40 hour drying time.
Is it Sherwin-Williams?
Can it be put over?
That hasn't been tested.
You have all these things?
I cannot answer that question, so.
When you were talking about painting, once this is set up and you're talking about, could you maybe just show with how far out on the glass you paint?
I'll just show you how I do it.
Okay.
How's that? You're brushing along, get plenty of paint, you know, out this far on the glass. You know, slap it on. Get it on there
You mess up
good.
my glazing, you get to do it.
Yeah, I know. I will be very careful. And let's say this is a single-bladed razor blade. Okay, single-edged razor blade. Thing's all dry now. So what you do is you come along with this right on the glazing, and you scrape up to it as a shield. It'll leave that 32nd, that little tiny bit of paint, the width of the blade on the glass. And after a while, you get pretty good at it. You can take it and you use this as a moving shield, where you do this, okay?
Yeah.
And you can peel it right off.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
So,
Very good.
I've used the little plastic shields that you can
Yeah.
use for interior painting. It's just a little longer than the putty.
well, my favorite is the one that I use the most often, and we just keep downstairs, is we use a 12-inch tape knife, drywall taping knife.
Sure.
Because it's that, you know, it's that big, and where it's precisely, it's the right width, you know. So.
Any questions on?
Can I see that glazing tool?
Sure you can.
Ace Hardware.
Was that it?
Aisle 6.
Upstairs next to the
Does
paint.
everybody know what this is? This little device? Do you know what that's for?
Hold the two of them together.
That's not to keep burglars out.
Hold the two windows together.
Okay? If they don't work, your window will leak air like you wouldn't believe. If the two sash don't meet at the rail,
your window is going to leak. No amount of insulated glass, no amount of laminated glass, nothing that you do will make that window energy efficient if that isn't working correctly. And if the two meeting rails or check rails don't line up and work properly, nothing you do, all the fancy schmooze that you can put on that window is not going to make it worth a doodly. They have to work. As we just finished the Edgewater, there were a number of windows in the Edgewater that were wider, much wider than the one we had there. And over the years, the rails had kind of started to warp a little bit. What we did, we put them all back in, and frankly, some snow came flying through these windows, you know, because the check rails weren't perfect. We switched and we put 2 locks on at third points, and they're perfect. The people in the, you know, apartments are just ecstatic. And this is in a building that sits 500 yards from Lake Michigan. And all of the windows that we worked on had aluminum storms on them when we started, and none of them do now. All the storms have gone away, and the tenants, the people that live in the building, all claim they're warmer now than they were before we started.
I had a bunch of those, and they were really nice. Originally, probably a brass coated pieces, you know, the 2, one on each side of the window. And I took them all off and was going to clean them up. And it was in the fall, and you're right. I can tell you, you know, I mean, suddenly those things became more important. You know? I could feel the draft coming out of these windows, and I thought, wait a minute, they weren't that way last winter, you know, what's wrong? And it was sure enough, boy, I started putting them back on.
Well, the interesting part is this is the kind that has an arm. Where is the doggone? See this arm? And it has kind of a cam action that draws it back to draw them two together, okay? That's kind of a modern one. The old-fashioned one is the old clamshell, you know? Well, the clamshell also has the effect of drawing the rails together, but it has another interesting one in that it actually shoves the upper sash and the bottom sash tighter in the opening from top to bottom.
Because it's beveled.
Well, it's the way that the shape of the metal.
Right.
Both the tongue and the interior track. The interior track's going to pull it back.
Yeah, exactly.
And the hoop, the heart, we can push them up and down. So it's very beautifully designed little pieces, and some of them are just gorgeous.
Well, and what's funny is that that window has one half of one of them on there. We did the first 2 floors of 19 floors. They replaced all the ones upstairs with aluminum. Windstrom, of all things, which is primarily a storm manufacturer. So 17 floors of the building have a high-quality storm window as a primary window, and then 2 stories have ours. So we had a lot of opportunity to salvage hardware off of all the ones upstairs. And I obtained buckets of the sash locks, and the original sash locks were in HB Ives, okay, number 026 MB3, stamped right in the bottom. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, you got Ives.
Do I?
I think you do.
I just work there part-time.
Well, but they also carried the Frankenstein of hardware known as National.
Well, they're there. They're there.
And we pulled the originals off, and we decided we're not going to go. We were contracted to buy new. I found that I knew perfectly well that HBI still made the 026 MB3 at a cost of $17 a piece in solid brass. So we took all the originals and salvaged them. I had young men standing there on a buffing wheel. I probably spent just as much restoring the originals as we would have bought buying new ones, but you could not tell the difference. They had not changed the design at all since 1929, so that's 73 years ago. And a great piece of hardware too, I might add. And they also had the number 9 handles, you know. We had to do those too.
Very good.
All right, does everyone know how to glaze?
I'm not for hire.
I don't do windows.
I don't do windows. No.
One thing I have found, because I've taught a couple of glazing courses, is that for ladies, sometimes it's kind of hard to do that technique.
Yeah.
One thing you might want to do is everybody knows how to make snakes from pottery when you were 5. Just make little snakes and shove them in. They work. That works too.
Long line.
Yeah. Sure does.
Plus the fact that you're doing it outside and it's a little bit cool, that keeps it warm, more flexible. And
And that is important. You should warm it in your hands before you.
Yeah.
Haven't I even noticed that I've seen product available already rolled up, rolled almost like that?
Yeah, there are.
Oh well, there's rope caulk.
Yeah.
yeah.
One of my favorite things.
Yeah, we used to have some of that.
Still buy it.
I think it disappeared.
Still buy a lot of it. Every year I buy 2 rolls of rope caulk. Everybody know what rope caulk is?
Yeah.
Huh? All right. Works great, doesn't it?
Sure.
It's a perfectly acceptable thing to do, is to go around and, at the beginning of the heating season, go around and rope caulk your windows. Saves you, that $5 you spent on that roll will save you, $200-300 in heating costs. And then you don't have to go through all of the pain of putting in zinc weather stripping.
All right,
Very good.
thank you, Frank.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Well, I'm just going to show a quick thing here about my kind of epoxy.
Well, you could probably Frank's balance mechanism shot here. You could probably epoxy his balance mechanism shot.
Yeah, yeah, it would work.
Put it over on this side and he can get a better
Oh, okay.
shot of it.
We'll move it that way. Yeah, it's a heavy one. For years and years, I can't tell you how many kits of Abitron I've used. You know, you buy Abitron in a little kit. It comes with a bucket with the part A and a little bucket with part B. And I think it's about $90 every time you buy one of those things. And I met and knew a guy from Davenport whose name is John Stahl. He was doing restoration work in Hoboken, New Jersey. And he was buying windows from Midwest Architectural. And I think he got kind of tired of being in the construction side of things. And so he found this company that was making this epoxy, and he started to adapt it and use it for restoration-oriented work rather than in marine and industrial work. And it's just really, he's sold me and a lot of people everywhere on the use of FlexTech. You start out with, I don't know if I've got anything to mix this in. Can I get somebody to get a styrofoam cup back there maybe? You have to prime something that you're working on. And John is a very strong, and I am too, a very strong proponent of not, Abitron will tell you, oh, pour our stuff into those wet, humus-ridden fibers that you're going to try to save, and our consolidant will work. Well, you're just leaving wet wood behind you everywhere you go. And John and I both believe in a Dremel tool, and on this sash, this whole area, if you come around here where you can see that there's been some damage, I would take, and I'm not going to do it today, but there's a big chunk out of it. I would take a Dremel tool, and I would just dig it out so that it was more wood showing, you know, like this.
I've been looking for an excuse to buy one of those.
You don't want, you know, if you find spongy, we all know what it's like, humus, moldy, if it's got green or black growing on it, if your knife goes in more than a 3/16 on the point, you need to dig it out a little bit. And what you do is this is a 2-to-1. You just, oops, I was going to mix it the wrong way. You just, the caps are the right size, you know. You just mix it 2-to-1. And it forms a primer. And I'm going to do this with my... It's real easy to do. And it can be brushed right in. And I'm just going to show it to you rather than apply it so that you can kind of see what its consistency is. It's kind of a, yeah, kind of a pink goo. Okay? It's easy to brush in. It'll go into the wood fibers real well. And it forms a real good bonding agent for what you're going to put in next. Okay? It's got about a 20-minute life. It takes about 20 minutes to dry. And that's, they call that prime trait, which is just their primer. And it's very similar to what Abitron would call their wood consolidant. It's essentially identically the same thing, although of a different chemical composition. My complaint, and a lot of us that have worked with Abitron over the years, and I'm not putting Abitron down completely here, it's still a good product and it has lots of uses, is that it's very hard. It dries, when it sets up, it's just very hard and brittle. The FlexTech, when it sets up, is much more, I can't describe it as rubbery, but I can describe it as more flexible and has a lot more give, and it's more, much more closer in like to wood in its expansion and contraction coefficient, which Abitron is not. Once you have the consolidant in, and you just brush it in, you have this real fancy schmancy thing. They make a mixing nozzle that's about this long that's got baffles in it, and when you crank down on the caulk gun, it goes through it and mixes it automatically as it comes out the end of the tube. If you're using a lot of this, and particularly when you're doing windowsills, which are an area of much concern, that's a real good thing to use. We don't use them a lot because we're not using huge quantities all the time. So what we'll do is we'll just take and gun it right out onto a, I'll always use a piece of glass. The nice thing about this is the rate of metering. You've got a perfect rate of meter just about every time, wouldn't you know it? My RAM on this one isn't cockeyed, isn't it? Sorry about that. When it's set up properly, the rate of metering is perfect. There we go. There, a good dab. I'll show you another good dab. See how they come out right? I'm going to put this back in. The stuff is, like all good things, a little expensive. About 45 bucks a tube, but for an average house, you probably would only need a couple. It does that much. And it's real simple. We then just take and we start working it. And I want you to see the consistency when I get done, because it's a little bit thicker than toothpaste. And what we found is that we can do molding profiles with it so much better. Well, here's the problem. You've got an overnight set with it. That's the only problem. No, it's not sagging. You'll see. All right. I'm gonna, you can see, I can put that in there and it stays, okay? And what we've been doing, a lot of times when you have molding profiles that are out on the back, we'll just take and make a little cutout piece that's the shape of the molding. We'll put the Flex Tech in and strike it off like you would a plaster mold, you know, and we're really, really close to the profile. Mm-hmm. A piece of cardboard, small piece of plexiglass works really good. We have found that we don't have to build out, you know, Abitron, you usually build way out past where you're going to go, because you're going to have to come back, and we have found that we don't need to do that with the Flex Tech nearly as much. It is also eminently machinable. You can take and run once it's done setting, you can run a router over it without any problem at all, and it sands out very nicely. You'll never know it's there once it's done. You can it'll take multiple layers of build. You don't want to go much more than ½ an inch or so. Okay.
So you can, the pot light.
You can work it for several hours. Again, very much unlike Abitron, which is you can work it for maybe 20 minutes. Is about all. Yep. And so it's very forgiving. And I'm going to just kind of let you play. Go ahead, play. Kind of give you an idea of its consistency and why we like it so much, you know, for working. And once you get it done, once it's on there,
Toxic fumes or anything like that?
nah.
Will it hold
paint then
Oh, beautifully.
as well as Abitron?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The liver damage and kidney damage won't occur for 20 years.
You don't want to like petroleum jelly on it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a better description than I have had, I think.
You buy the whole outfit from...
I would, you can. I would not buy. I would not buy the gun from Flex Tech. That's where he makes some of his money.
Oh, really?
And you can buy this gun from Stetson Building Products. I mean, everybody that's in concrete nowadays is using epoxy resins for gunning up cracks and for putting in rods into concrete. You know, where they'll use the epoxy for putting dowels in concrete. So anybody that's in the concrete business is selling stuff to the concrete trades has this gun. And he sells it for like $130, and I got this one for $29.95.
If you're asking for that, is there like a special name for that?
And
kind of
a two-piston caulk gun.
Something else too, when you do edge work, you can take a piece of wood and wrap it in
Yes,
wax paper and put on the edge.
Yeah.
That way you can use it as a form to hold on the edge for you and gives you a nice edge to work with.
Yeah.
Then you just take off your clamp or whatever, and there's your repair.
Leave it on until it sets.
Sets, yeah.
Good idea.
Well,
It is an overnight set, and heat does accelerate the set time on it. Our office, my facility, propane torch, yeah. My facility, my office in Davenport is the old stores and ice house for the Annie Wittenmeyer Orphanage in Davenport. And in the basement, there are a number of old meat lockers. And we've discovered that we can take and we'll do 20 or 30 sash, and we'll put them in one of the lockers, and we'll put one of the little cube heaters in there and shut the door, and I can get the temperature up to 90 in there in a few minutes. And it helps accelerate the set on it quite a bit. Also does real good with helping paint dry.
I'm outside patching a hole in a windowsill and it rains. I mean, do you need to protect it? From
Yeah, you probably should protect it, yeah. This one here was pretty good. I'll mix that one up too.
Once you open the multiple tubes,
You're
close
fine.
it back up.
You close it back up, it'll last forever. As long as the components aren't mixed, you're fine. Yeah, and that's the other nice thing. You know, Abitron, after a while, if you've got the things open, the two components don't last that well for long periods of time on their own, whereas this seems to go a little bit better.
It looks so easy to work. I mean, you get a tired wrist mixing Abitron because it starts out so stiff.
Yeah, certainly is. Now, how much of the old wood, the rotted wood, do you need to get out? Do you really have
Until you get to sound.
Okay, so I know there's a product at Ace called some Sure Rot, and it's, and you don't have to say that now, thanks, Don. But it doesn't mix up that thick. It stays very liquid, and you sort of pour it in, and it's supposed to go down in.
Yeah, and that's what the primer does.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the whole product.
Mm-hmm.
And then
this will
rock hard.
Yeah.
Just from that.
Well, but you'd probably have to have a lot of builds. You'd have to a lot of lifts on that to make it work.
Well, I tried it on storm frame. Quite rotten. I took a lot of the wood out, but it's still rotten wood, and they just said punch some holes, drill some holes, and then just fill it in. And it really came back solid. Now, I don't know how long it's going to last. It's been out for 2 years, and it doesn't hold paint well. I know that. But this seems to build
very, very well.
So this looks like a better product if it penetrates. It either has to penetrate or we have to get all of the old wood.
Well, and that's you get the old wood out, and then you use that primer. You brush that in and pour that in, and that there's a certain lift to that too. I mean, it creates a layer, if you will. That then this stuff. I mean, when my men first started using it on some windows, even though I had instructed them, the pinheads forgot that they needed to use this on probably a dozen sash. All right.
They got too excited about that double gun. They got too excited about the double gun.
Yeah, they were. Well, they were just, you know, mindlessly listening to rock and roll down in the basement is what they were doing. You don't have anyone like that, do you? One of them came from him. Anyways,
now we know why.
You know, and I have to tell you, that stuff was like rocks. It was like a mother cat holding her onto her kittens in those half a dozen sash or so, you know. But when we got to finally on the right page with this and put the prime trade in, I was amazed at that. An even better repair. I mean, it just really, really is a strong, strong bond. So.
Is there any harm to your skin if you do get it on it?
No, I've never had a problem with it other than it smells for a little while. So, and there are lots of different epoxies out there. The West system of epoxies by Guggenheim Brothers is a famous marine epoxy company that is often specified by architects. Also kind of in the hard, very hard. See, this kind of gets back to the different philosophies. If you're a chemical supplier, you want everything to be like, oh boy, it's tough, it's got strength, it's tensile, it's, you know, all this stuff. When you're dealing with wood and old masonry, strong and hard isn't necessarily the best thing. Flexible and adhesive is far more important, you know, than being hard and strong like rocks. So West System it's a marine epoxy. It was made for holding boats together. Is it going to be waterproof? Oh boy. Yeah, it's going to be real waterproof. What's some other ones? Carboline makes one that's really good. T-Nemic makes a good one. There are lots of different epoxy products out there that you can use. We've really had such good luck with this one that we've decided that's it. You know, we'll keep our men well trained in this. You know, all you got to do is get on the web. I order mine through the web every time. And every time I forget John's number and then I forget to write it down, I have to go back on the website and go look for, I just type in the words Flex Tech and up he comes.
Clarify for me, the prime tray, you use that when you just have some deep rot then, or?
You use it every time you put it on. It's the primer.
Okay.
Okay, but it does, it's like, kind of like the Abitron always sells their wood consolidant is what the way they describe it. And that consolidant is supposed to go in there and bond to all of the fibers, you know, that you're keeping, so. Matter of fact, is his number on there?
It's on the gun.
No, here we go. You want Advanced Repair Technologies name. 1-607, or phone number, 1-607-264-9040. And the company that sells it is Advanced Repair Technology. The gentleman that owns the company is John Stahl, S-T-A-H-L, and he's from Davenport, originally. Transplanted to Hoboken. And now up into upstate New York somewhere. I'm always marveling at the number of products and stuff that are made here in Iowa that we don't even know about, that are sold elsewhere. You know, how many people really know that Schlegel Company, which is the largest manufacturer of weather stripping in the free world, is, you know, down in Burlington, you know, sitting out in the middle of the prairie somewhere, you know.
Great. Any other questions? Super. I appreciate you guys coming up.
I do have one, if we could backtrack a little bit to the window caulking process. Because that was DAP going on, his mother's window, would it have been necessary to wait for 28 days to paint it? And I thought earlier in this morning session you mentioned something that you could use that you wouldn't have to wait that long a time.
Well, the unfortunate part about using Biddle is that it's now only sold in 5-gallon buckets. And you have to be a distributor to get it. We used to have, when they sold it in 1-gallon cans, Midwest would sell you a 1-gallon can of it, and it's even actually cheap. But Biddle got bought out, and if you want to look up Biddle, you can buy it. If you want to look it up, I'd get a cooperative of people together to buy a 5.
If you want cooperative people, even if you want to come to me, I'll sell you, well, 20 for the few. I'd like to keep it a gallon or more. And if you can get a cooperative, I'll sell you a 5-gallon. They're very difficult people to deal with.
They don't want to deal with the public at large. They just want to deal with the, you know, pallets worth. But the company's name that owns Biddle Glazing Company now is called Schnee, S-C-H-N-E-E dash Morehead, M-O-R-E-H-E-A-D. And if you enter that on your search engine, I'm a big internet user, and yeah, Schnee Morehead. And they're down in St. Louis. They're not very far away. Just for a matter of history, glazing compound from that sash that he had this morning, back in, you know, they didn't have chemical companies. The glazer, the guy that was painting the house would mix up his own glazing compound. And all glazing compound was in the old days was linseed oil and whiting. You know what whiting is? It's just calcium carbonate. And they would take the two of them and just mix them together, and that's what glazing compound was. You know, and I know glazers in New York that still, you know, in New York City, that still make their own glazing compound on site. You know, they just bring in a 5-pound bag of whiting, and I bet you anything, if you went wandering around Ace somewhere, on a back shelf somewhere, there's going to be a box that's labeled whiting. You know, that everyone's forgotten what it is. Yeah, it's probably yellowing whiting now. You're right, you got that right. And then you just take the same linseed oil, mix it together, and it's glazing compound. The Biddle is a little more high-tech. It's got some other chemical stuff in it. That the nice thing about the bonding agents and stuff. Mm-hmm.
Before we use it, I'm sorry,
It's painful.
this cleans over in about 2 days. And that, you should wait before the price comes over the paint. But you can still be aware that you can still put fingerprints in. You know, just like you said, you walk up, to pick up the sash and, oh, yeah, there it is, fingerprints in it every time.
I had a new set of front doors made for my office. This is an old building that was, it's a big 3-story brick job, and the city owned it, so you can imagine everything that had been ripped out of it. And so the front doors had been replaced with some really lovely hollow core wood doors. Very, very stable and secure. I had some new doors made, and I had to glaze them. And it was just before a big party for my tenant upstairs. And we glazed it and, painted it, and they looked great, And somebody at the party managed to come and put their fingers in it. Yeah, I know. Rotten, horrible, no good.
If you buy some of that from Ace, though, don't do like I did and buy I'm working with wood windows. I got the glazing for metal. So read the label first. I should learn how to read something.
The UGL brand, if you can find it, I don't know, I know if you could find the UGL brand in Cedar Rapids, I don't know what else you got around here at Mount Vernon, but the UGL brand sets up a lot quicker. That, if you were looking at the chain?
Yeah.
That is an option, just for some of you, may have you, instead of sash ropes, they have many, many windows. Typically from about the 1880s on, they started to kind of go towards chain a little bit, particularly in commercial. And you could buy sash chain, I'm sure at Ace.
The reason I was looking at it, I did a window a year or so ago, and I got it done and put everything back on, and it was just tougher and hell to get up and down. And I'm trying to figure out what I could have done in there, just hooking a rope from sash to the pulley, but it's not working very well. And I don't know, I maybe just used too big of a rope.
Well, that's one, and one that I tell you, never use, I've seen lots of people do this. Oh, the old ropes broke, so they must be no good. Well, geez, they only lasted 60, 70 years, and, probably had 10, 12,000 operations on them, so I can't say they were bad. Use cotton sash cord. It has to say sash cord on it. Can't read clothesline. And it can't read nylon. Use cotton sash cord because it's made specifically for that operation and that use, and you'll see it on there. And the other one, and I've seen people use everything from, good old nylon, full nylon. Oh, I'm going to make it a lot better. I'll put nylon rope because it's the most expensive. The trouble with the nylon is it slips, not slip. I've seen people use polypropylene, like they figure, oh, geez, if I can go use it on my ski boat, my towboat, it's going to be great. It'll never break, and it's awful. It's the sash cord. It doesn't work at all. So you can also use the sash chain, and you'll find in the Old House Journal and a lot of places they recommend this as a way of doing things, and I hope I can. No, it's got a nail in it. I've done it. Well, I'm going to have you come up and take a look at it. Inside the hole, there's a little ring. You see the little metal ring in there? That's a really good idea in an old sash. Okay? And you can do it with a sash cord, too. I'm going to show you in the Old House Journal. I've used this on all my... What happens is the wood around the top of that gets a little weak, and so it's tends or it's prone. You got a lot of weight, you got half the weight of that sash on there. Oh yeah, this book.
Not available at 8.
No.
This is the Cornell Library, though.
Yes, your local public library, probably.
Yep. I'm going to show him the detail. 1/4-inch hole in a piece of plastic pipe will work exactly the same way. It ties the knot in, and you'll never have a problem getting with the cord pulling out. It's one of those little weird tricks, you know, that makes a whole difference. Does everybody know this book? It's the best $14.95 you're ever going to spend. I have 2 of them. One is signed to me by Pat Poor, who wrote it. And this is kind of my travel around one. But I tell everyone, if you have $15 to spend and you own an old house, the first project that you do, this book will save its own value. It's just bar none the best.
Who wrote it?
Pat Poor, Patricia Poor. She's the editor of the Old House Journal. Poor, P-O-O-R-E.
It probably has everything in there that I got in my 297 volumes of books.
Yep. Yep.
Best stuff.
Yeah, this is the best of the Old House Journal. And you all have the famous Anatomy of a Double Hung, that's an Old House Journal, and of course it's in here as well. But and if you need to go farther, you know,
Yeah.
it's just by far the best you can do.